I lost hundreds of dollars on this Pokemon card by not selling. At the time, I could have sold this card for 900 US dollars or more on the secondary market. But today, it can be bought for less than $200. For those who don't know, this is the Japanese Miriam SAR card from the set Violet EX. The card I should have sold, but to this day, still can't bring myself to do it. And after considerable self-reflection, some therapy, some real long talks with my girlfriend, I've learned 3 essential lessons about why I made this expensive mistake, and I'm gonna break them all down in this video so you can make the best decisions with your collecting money. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TCG Buyers Club. My name's Gray, I buy cardboard, and I make collecting and investing in Pokemon simple. Getting right into it, the first lesson, number 1, is are you a collector or an investor? Because if you're truly an investor, then your emotional attachment to an item should have no bearing on your decision to sell. Your goal is to make money, and your decision making should be an execution of your investing strategy. But if you're a collector, the emotional attachment might be everything. You just want to own things that mean something to you. And when I got this Miriam SAR card, I was 100% a collector. See, I pulled this card myself at the height of its popularity, and the experience of doing so was just thrilling. And naturally, I associated so much value to the card because of that experience that it gave me. And at the time, when asked if I would sell, the answer was obvious: no way. And this is just fundamental to the collector's mindset. We are not so concerned on the financial value of each item, and are just instead motivated by the intrinsic value of collecting pieces that we love and admire. What's interesting here is that I was absolutely a collector with respect to this card until I knew how far the price was going to fall. And that brings us to lesson number 2, which is that left to their own devices, collectors never sell. And there are just so many reasons that this might be true. For example, when this card was selling for 900 USD, there was no way I was going to sell because I valued it at that market price plus whatever additional value my emotional attachment was worth. And when I look at the value today at $200, I still value this card more than that $200. It's still not worth it for me to sell. It's only in hindsight that I can look at it and say, would I have liked $900 a year ago versus $200 today? And of course, I'd take that option all day long. But what's going on here? Why can't I make a better decision at the time? And I've done a ton of research on this, and there's so many reasons I could potentially point to. There's hindsight bias, which is that over time, once we've seen an outcome play out, in hindsight, it always feels like that outcome was far more likely than we may have anticipated in the past. But that's only because before it's happened, there's so many more complex variables that contribute to what outcome might occur. Or regret theory. As humans, we struggle to make decisions that we fear we may regret. And whenever it comes to parting with a cherished collectible, that rings so true because we already value these items so much. The thought of selling them before they've hit their top price is scary and something we all want to avoid. So it becomes easier to not sell or not make that decision. And then there's hedonic adaptation, which just means that our feelings and emotions tend to make their way back to a normal state over time. So the feeling I had when I pulled this card and I was absolutely ecstatic maybe feels less significant over time as my feelings towards the card have regulated back to a normal threshold. Now that more time has passed and potentially that hedonic adaptation has taken place, maybe the value I place on that experience is a little less than before, making the selling decision a little bit easier. And honestly, there's so many more factors at play. Collecting is emotional, and there are all kinds of tricks our mind plays on us that can cause us to deviate from making what would be the strictly logical decision. Every collector is going to encounter these biases in different ways with different items and at different times in their hobby. It's just the nature of the beast. And so when I look at this specific item and I think, why couldn't I sell? I totally get it. There were infinite reasons that I decided to hold on to this card and now maybe regret that decision a little bit. And that's why I conclude collectors never sell, at least not until they encounter more extreme circumstances. And overcoming this takes us to our final lesson, lesson 3, which is just sell into the hype. Because when I pulled this Miriam SAR, nothing was hotter in the modern Pokemon market. And I didn't appreciate just how significant this hype cycle it was swept up in actually was, causing me to really underestimate the potential downside risk, which of course made it a lot harder to sell the card. Quite honestly, I was super comfortable with the idea of a 30 or 40% loss in value on this card. In fact, that's what I expected. Looking at other chase cards from recent sets, specifically the Moonbryon and the other Evolution VMAX cards from EV Heroes. All of those cards saw some pretty substantial dips in the months following the EV Heroes release, and especially with some additional print waves. But they all bounced back relatively quickly and have continued to go on to be extremely valuable cards. That was the model I was applying to this Miriam SAR when I made that decision. But what I missed was just how hyped up the market was at that time and how to evaluate it. And I think I've since developed a better framework for recognizing these opportunities as major selling opportunities regardless of emotional attachment. And I call this stacked hype. Because at the time, this Miriam SAR was caught up in at least 3 separate hype cycles. One, that the Japanese Pokemon market was experiencing a huge hype cycle of its own. And within that, waifu cards in particular were emerging as some of the most hyped card types within the Japanese market. And to close it out, with Scarlet and Violet era cards just being released and SAR trainer cards being a staple of these first sets, it even benefited from this general Scarlet and Violet hype cycle. These 3 hype cycles all stacked together to create enormous demand and massive price increases for this chase card. And as those cycles all went down over time, the card's drop was equally magnified. When do you sell into the hype? It's this idea of multiple hype cycles stacking together to create massive demand and price appreciation for a card. And this is important because any one hype cycle is a big moment for a collectibles category. When we see multiple subcategories stacking together, I think it is a rarer opportunity and a stronger sign that if you're going to sell, now is the time. And this is the decision-making framework I'm going to be applying to more of my collection going forward. So I hope this information is going to help you get the most out of your collecting dollars. And to be clear, I'm not suggesting that every collector needs to be prepared to sell their collection at any time. Not at all. But if you think you may want to sell in the future, this stacked hype framework is going to give you a much better cue for when you should be taking those instincts seriously. And mainly, this all just comes from me being a collector who noticed feelings of regret with respect to this one card that I value so much, and just trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Ultimately, we all need to make the best decisions we can for ourselves and our collections. And I just hope that this gives you some new tools for accomplishing that for yourself. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more content just like this. I honestly spent a ton of time wrestling with the ideas in this video, and it means the world for me to hear from all the people who enjoyed it or got any value out of it all. And of course, I read every single comment. I can't wait to hear from you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the TCG Buyers Club. My name's Gray, I buy cardboard, and I'll see you in the next video.